Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com and ArrowheadAddict.com, and today I wanted to make a follow-up video to the St. Louis NFL lawsuit involving the city of St. Louis, Stan Kroenke, NFL owners, Roger Goodell, all of that. I actually made a video not too long ago going over this lawsuit, just since I was someone who was based in St. Louis, and despite not being a Rams fan, the Rams aren't my favorite team, although I did cheer for them when they were in St. Louis, just because you always like to see the local team do well and everything. But I saw them get screwed over by Kroenke in the NFL, and I really decided, I'm going to make a video. I need people to know about this, because a lot of people didn't really know about it. It wasn't getting a lot of national coverage. And what do you know? The video I made on it blew up. I mean, it's almost at 40,000 views now, and I really appreciate everyone who watched that video. It's been one of the best videos I've ever made, and I did put a lot of work into it. It's one of my only videos that took me maybe a week to record, edit, and upload. Usually I don't make big projects like that, but it was a huge success, and I'm glad 40,000 people now know the story. But obviously, since I made that video, things have changed a little bit. It looked like St. Louis was going to take the NFL to trial for a minute, and it looked like St. Louis, they were going to rout the NFL. Like, it looked like a complete, boat race, for lack of a better term. A lot of the reporters and people who were covering the case extensively were saying things like billions. The word billions got thrown around a lot. St. Louis is going to get billions of dollars out of the NFL. And then all of a sudden, the case abruptly ends when St. Louis and the NFL agreed to settle. Really, it was only St. Louis and Kroenke agreed to settle. I think the NFL is still kind of on the hook for some of their expenses. It's kind of complicated. I'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, St. Louis and the NFL, or Kroenke. I'll just say St. Louis and Kroenke because I really think that's what this was. I think Kroenke just wanted it to be over, and I think the St. Louis lawyers wanted it to be over too. They had been working on this case for the last 4 to 5 years, and they wanted their cut and they wanted it to be done. But anyway, they settle for a grand total of $790 million. Now, it's funny because when this lawsuit first began, if you told St. Louisans and people who were following this case that St. Louis would end up with basically $800 million, everyone would go, that would be fantastic. But we heard the term billions thrown around for so long, and we saw all the court proceedings, how much St. Louis was just winning everything. The NFL was denied the attempt for summary judgment, all this stuff. And it really looked like St. Louis was going to run away with this thing. So now $790 million almost kind of seems like a loss, and that's the sense I'm getting. That was my first reaction when I saw the report from Ben Fred and Joel Courier, at the STL Post-Dispatch. It was late, a couple nights ago. It was real late, and I just saw the tweet that they were reaching a settlement, and I'm going, and all this time, all this talk, we were seeing Kroenke and the NFL start to squirm a little bit over this. The owners were really panicking towards the end of this thing, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later too, but I just kind of want to get my general thoughts out first. Everything was falling St. Louis's way, and then they just decided to settle. It's disappointing. It really is. I think we all wanted this thing to go to trial. I thought it was going to go to trial eventually. So while St. Louisans are happy to get this $790 million, and really it's not even going to be $790 million because the lawyers get a chunk, so after all the expenses are cleared, it's going to be more like $500 million for the city, which is why I think a lot of people are disappointed by this, because it really does feel like St. Louis could have gotten a whole lot more if they really tried. This just seemed kind of like the money's right there. St. Louis was probably afraid of what would happen in the appeals process. Maybe they do go to court, they win, $1.5 billion, and then you go to appeals and you don't get any of it. And I think St. Louis got a little scared by that. And to me, that was wrong. I felt like that was them kind of bowing down again. And if I'm Kroenke in the NFL, I'm going, this is great. We just screwed you over twice. We took your NFL team, and then we robbed you in court, because they really could have gotten so much more. I really truly believe that if they brought this to court and they went for broke, They could have gotten well over $1 billion, and it would have been everything we had dreamed. And not only that, Kroenke and the NFL, they would have had to go on stand. They would have had to testify. The truth would have come out. I think it would have gotten more national coverage than it had been getting this entire time. When those guys go up there, here's the thing. We wanted the story to come out about them. We wanted people to know the corruption that goes on inside the NFL and with the owners and everything. But the truth is, St. Louis already knows about that. Like, we all know the story. Everyone who's listening to this that looked for this or had been following this case, like, you guys know, okay? But the problem was everyone in the outside world wasn't really aware of what was going on, and I still see it. I see Bleacher Report and SportsCenter tweeting, oh, St. Louis and the NFL settle for $790 million, and people are going, why does St. Louis get all this money? You know, oh, they're just salty. Like, it's really astounding how many people just have a complete lack of knowledge about this case altogether, and they're just commenting on it, and it's really frustrating. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted this to go to court, was because the truth, you know, the NFL would have had to air their dirty laundry, and the world would have gotten to see into all this corruption. But yeah, I alluded to it a second ago about, you know, how this was really making the owners squirm and stuff. That's another disappointing aspect of this, is towards the end, you know, the owners had kicked Kroenke out of the room when Kroenke backed off his promise that he would pay all of the expenses. When Kroenke and the Rams decided to move to LA and the NFL approved it, it was under the notion that, hey, you know, if we get into some deep crap because of this, you're going to cover the expenses. You know, this is your move to LA. We're doing you a favor, so you got to cover this. And then Kroenke pivoted off of that recently, and the owners were starting to get a little pissed off. And I think the NFL started to realize we just tied our boat to the wrong guy, because they were getting Kroenked, and everyone could see it. Kroenke also had the initial settlement offer of $100 million, which STL would never have accepted. I know STL kind of cheaped out here, but good thing they did not go for the $100 million settlement, because that was just a joke. You saw Kroenke starting to be his cheap, bold penny pincher self and all facets of this, and it was starting to go south for him in the NFL pretty quickly. And if this had continued, I think it may have put a permanent strain on Kroenke's relationship with all the owners, and it may have already, because you know how these owners can be, these billionaire owners. You know, Kroenke kind of, I think, has damaged his reputation among his inner circle. I really think STL could have made it happen, and it's disappointing they didn't. And you know, you had heard a little bit through the media that St. Louis, for them, it was less about the money and more of exposing the NFL. But in the end, I think we see that as a lie, because then they wouldn't have taken the settlement offer. I think they were scared by the appeal process. I think, you know, the $790 million, it was right there. They figured, hey, you know, if the NFL is offering this, we might as well go for it, because that's still a lot of money. It's not too far off from $1 billion. So, hey, let's just go for it. We've been working on this case for a long time, and I alluded to that earlier as well with the lawyers and everyone involved in this case, really. Like, they had been working on it for the last 4 to 5 years. They were probably done, man. Like, they saw the $790 million right there, and it was too good for them to pass up. And I can understand that a little bit, but I do understand the side, you know, St. Louis, really, that is disappointed from this, because I really do think they could have gotten more through court. I think it would have been a complete rout of the NFL. And this just feels kind of anticlimactic. Like, it really did feel like St. Louis fumbled the bag a little bit here. I know there was also some talks about St. Louis potentially getting an expansion team as a settlement. I mentioned that in the original video I made. And as cool as it sounded, having the NFL back in St. Louis, even for those who had kind of accepted the fact that the NFL was never coming back, when talks heated up of maybe an expansion team being involved in discussions, people kind of got pulled in like, man, it would be good to have football back in St. Louis. And trust me, I was like that too. But in the end, it just doesn't make sense. I made this analogy in the first video I made. It would be like moving back in with your ex-wife, you know, after getting a divorce. It just doesn't make sense. There was bad blood. The relationship was sour. You just had a lawsuit with the NFL. You just sued the NFL, and now you want a team again. It just really wouldn't make a lot of sense. And with this case now ending with a settlement and everything and a team not being involved, I think you can kiss the possibility of the NFL ever coming back to St. Louis goodbye, at least for this generation of owners and everyone that runs the NFL. They're not interested in St. Louis, and St. Louis is not interested in the NFL either. I think, the XFL is likely coming back in a couple of years, even though that's not the NFL. That's football that they anticipate on being back. I think there have been promises made. You got the soccer team coming up with that new stadium being built. I think an NBA team is probably more likely in the future than an NFL team as well, especially with the Enterprise Center. I just never really saw football coming back, not unless anyone agreed to play in the Dome, which was never going to happen. And I'm not actually interested. That's another aspect to all of this. I'm interested to see what happens with the Dome, if any of this money goes towards that to fix it up a little bit. But at this point, with how old the Dome is, it might almost be worth it to knock it down and put something newer there. That being said, though, the Dome is still good for things like conventions. There were reports that the city of St. Louis is making more from conventions that go to the Dome now than they ever made with the Rams in their latter years with Kroenke as owner, which is really interesting. But yeah, they could always fix up the Dome a little bit, because I know they've been struggling. They were losing some conventions to other cities and stuff now with the Dome just being that outdated. So maybe they do go to fix it up to make it more of an appealing place for conventions and shows to go to. I know they had already fixed up some of the outside of it, but they hadn't really touched the Dome at all. So maybe that's a possibility with this money. And that's a concern among the people too, is do we trust the city of St. Louis and the people who are now going to be in possession of this money to actually do good things with it? Or are we going to see it get wasted and St. Louis just kind of stay the same? I would like them to maybe use some of this money to knock down some of the old buildings and put something new there, or spruce the place up, fix the roads a little bit. Because let's be honest, St. Louis's leadership is subpar. At least in my opinion. I think that's also why you saw the St. Louis settle here, is because the leadership that was in charge of all this, little subpar. I'm just being honest. You hope the money goes to good things. I'll be interested to see what they come up with as a solution as to how people can see where the money goes. It would be awesome if the city would be transparent, or if people can vote on what the money goes to. I have no idea how they would set that up at this point, but you just hope it doesn't get wasted. It would really suck if the city was awarded basically, really close to $1 billion and everything just kind of stays the same. I would like to see visible improvement throughout the city, or see this go to something really cool. I was also kind of frustrated to see a lot of the journalists who covered this case after it was settled go, St. Louis should still be happy with the settlement because there was this that could happen, or that could happen, and they just took the easy way out, understand. No, because these journalists were the same people telling us, oh, St. Louis could totally win this thing, get a couple $1 billion. There were talks of, upwards of a couple $1 billion, not just $1 billion, like $2-3 billion almost potentially. I know there was a projection of St. Louis winning $2 billion from this. It was getting talked up. I mentioned it multiple times already. Billions was mentioned several times. And then these same people who talked about St. Louis getting billions were like, well, you should be happy with the $790 million. No, I'm not. I'm quite disappointed, actually, especially since you were the same person that was telling everyone, and everyone who was willing to listen, that St. Louis was getting at least $1 billion out of this thing. And that's just not what happened. And I know 790 is still a big number, but man, imagine what you could do with another 250 million on top of that. That's a lot of freaking money. And even though Kroenke and the NFL will have no problem paying this because of all their net worths and everything, it still hurts them to have to write that check. They'd much rather spend that $790 million on something else, and they still got to pay their lawyers and everything too out of this. So trust me, this does put a dent in their pockets a little bit, even though we would have all liked to have gotten more. But that's kind of where I stand with this whole thing. I definitely wanted to make a follow-up video for those who really enjoyed the first video I made of this. I was surprised how much it blew up, but I'm sure some of you guys are kind of curious to hear my thoughts now that the case is pretty much over. But yeah, that's all I got to say. But I definitely want to hear from you guys what your thoughts are on the results of this St. Louis NFL lawsuit. Do you think STL could have gotten more? Do you think this was the right move? And are you worried about what the money is going to go to? Let me know in the comments. But all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more people can find this. And I'll catch you all on the next one.